Breaking news, we want to bring you into the emergency NATO summit where Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg is speaking about how to counter Russian aggression in Ukraine. Let's listen in.
Your tanks, for 1% of all your aircraft, for multi-launch rocket systems, anti-ship weapons and means of air defense. A very specific list. What is your clear answer?
We all listened very carefully to President Zelensky, and many of the leaders in the room have had contacts with him over these weeks. I also spoke with him, and the Ukrainian defense minister participated in our defense ministerial meeting last week. We listened carefully, and of course we took note of his very compassionate message to all NATO allies. NATO allies provide significant support to Ukraine. And we provide also lethal weapons, advanced systems, and also systems that help them to shoot down planes and attack battle tanks with anti-tank weapons and many other types of systems, including drones. I will not go into the details of the exact type of systems we are deploying. There is close contact between NATO allies and Ukraine. But what I can say is that allies do what they can to support Ukraine with weapons so Ukraine can defend themselves. Self-defense is a right enshrined in the UN Charter. At the same time, we have a responsibility to prevent this conflict from becoming a full-fledged war in Europe involving not only Ukraine and Russia, but NATO allies and Russia. That will be more dangerous and more devastating, and I think we have to be honest about that, and that's exactly what we have been in our meeting today, and also what I say to you in the press conference now. Well, what we do.
All right, that is NATO chief there, Stoltenberg, essentially answering questions from the press, and really hit right on the head there with Zelensky asking for 1% of NATO jets and tanks. Stoltenberg went on to say, we have sent them ammunition, armor, and weaponry to fight back on air attacks, etc., but then stopping short of saying it would be dangerous to send jets over there, at least NATO jets, at this time. But again, Zelensky's pleas are still there. Meanwhile, as this continues, leaders of all 27 European Union countries, including President Biden and others, are there in Brussels. And the G7 just announcing now restrictions on Russia's bank use of gold, and then the U.S. announcing more sanctions on hundreds of elites. And it's been a month since the invasion has started. Our next guest is familiar with rebuilding a war-torn nation, former interim minister of Interior of Iraq, as appointed by the George W. Bush administration, also former New York Police Commissioner Bernie Kerik. Bernie, thank you so much for joining us here. You were responsible for rebuilding the National Police Intelligence Service and Border and Customs Police in Iraq following the war, if I'm correct on that. Bernie, when this war ends, and again, we don't know when this will be in Ukraine, but what lessons could be learned when comparing rebuilding Iraq to Ukraine?
I think the primary lesson is how much support they're going to need from the international community. Keep in mind, the damage, the structural damage that's been done to the country is in the billions upon billions of dollars. They're going to need international support to start that rebuilding. They're not going to have a number of the problems that Iraq had, for example, the national police, the intelligence service, their military. The Ukraine is pretty stable with its security forces. In fact, I think everybody's pretty surprised that their security forces have done as well as they have done. So they're not going to have that issue, but they are going to have the rebuilding issue of the infrastructure, and that's going to take an enormous amount of support from the international community.
Yeah, as we have already seen, the devastation in several different cities. Again, Mariupol, one of those that we know has essentially been wiped out. And that's just one, the port city, very significant area there for Ukraine. The battle rages on there. And then talking about police departments with you, we've seen just reports across the country of them giving up helmets giving up bulletproof vests as well. What's your thought on that and these efforts, again, by various police stations across our nation?
Well, I think it's a matter of what the Ukraine needs. I've been involved in getting a lot of equipment over there for their police service. Honestly, in addition to the police service and the military, I know there's a number of equipment firms, manufacturers that are sending in material for civilians because Putin has decided to, bomb, children's hospitals, to bomb these civilian areas. So there's a lot of equipment that's coming out of the States, and I think people in the United States feel for their suffering, and they're trying to do the best they can to help.
I want to talk as well, as this continues, if I can, to crime here in the States. Obviously, there are headlines that are happening here that, sometimes you don't see. But I want you to watch this video. It's going viral. Beverly Hills, broad daylight, burglars breaking the glass, stealing what some are saying it's millions of dollars worth of jewelry there, again, in broad daylight. In Beverly Hills. This, as the New York Post reporting, the NYPD is reviving its broken windows policies as Mayor Eric Adams fumes over the weekend shootings. A top police official reportedly told his fellow bosses, quote, "You have a mayor and a police commissioner who support you. Don't squander this opportunity. We're going back to what works. This is exciting times," end quote. Can you explain what broken windows policies are there and your thoughts on if it'll help?
Yeah, broken windows pretty much was created under Giuliani. It's a zero tolerance law enforcement. And it's basically when you take every bit of your resources, you overlay it on a map where the crime is, and then you send the cops out to do the job they're sworn to do. Here's the problem. That policy has been diminished substantially and destroyed during the de Blasio years. Eric Adams has said that he's going to clean up New York City. He's not going to clean up New York City if he doesn't institute the same policies that Giuliani created in 1993 that ultimately led to a 65% reduction in violent crime and a 70% reduction in murder. That's how you do it. Eric Adams knows how to do it. I think he's been cowering to the left. He's been sitting back trying to figure out how he could do it without being criticized by the left. Bottom line is aggressive policing works. You do that, you're going to reduce crime in New York City, and you're not going to see this nonsense that you see now with these smash and grab robberies or all these shootings that's going on in the city that he's infuriated about.
All right, we'll leave it right there. Bernie Kerik joining us live there with his thoughts. Good to see you, Bernie. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.